Hi, everyone. Just setting up my own AirPods. Welcome, welcome. GM, GE. Happy Wednesday, if it is Wednesday where you are. We're going to start bringing some folks up on the community call.
Hello.
Hi, Neil. It is Wednesday. It is.
Morning.
Morning. Welcome.
Do we have any dad jokes for this one
Oof,
while we're waiting?
I know. I mean, I can bring Jamie up if Jamie's got anything. I'm just using Chat GPT for jokes at this point.
Hey, why do you need Chat GPT for dad jokes when we have real life dads here?
Well, I need real life dads to raise their hands, and then we can get real life dads to give us real life dad jokes.
I don't know if I've used this one before. Hold on a sec. Let me check my dad list.
Oh, Keith has one.
Let's go. Yeah, I got nothing offhand.
Where do you take a sick boat?
I don't know.
I think something about docking to the dock, to the dock, to
To
the
the
dock,
dock. To the dock. That's good.
the dock too. Oh, Christina's got one. Two guys walked into a bar. The third guy ducked. I don't know if I'm understanding these right. Two guys walked into a bar. The third guy ducked. I don't get it. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in a moment, just letting people get in. Christina, like a bar, not a drinking bar. Walked into a bar. Ah, I got it. Okay. It took me a bit. It's awful. It's pretty good. Okay, awesome, guys. Welcome, everyone. This is the monthly Helium community call. We are meeting in April. And we are just I think a week out, April 18th, we migrated to Solana. So, super exciting, really major milestone for the network just happened. You can follow along in the community call agenda at helium.foundation/community-call. We'll take notes in there. We also have this recorded. So for anyone listening later, welcome as well. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here. We're going to kick it off with a bye and with Brian or Angry Bear here, Angry Pickle Bear, to just kind of give us a rundown of what happened with the migration. The migration's complete. Give us the kind of full sense of that. We'll have Noah on to talk about highlights from the migration, sort of what were the engineering feats here. We have updates from the IoT and mobile working groups. We'll have an update from the Manufacturers Compliance Committee, a grant update. We may have HIP 78 authors speak if they are able to join us. A lot of them were not. If Fraser's around, we'll have a talk about BEH&T and new governance. Him and his team wrote a really great article that they'll kind of go over the main points of. And then we can also just open for some Q&A. So I'll hand it over to Abai and Brian. Oh, give me 5 minutes.
Sorry, just getting settled. Good morning, everyone. I assume no one wanted to hear elevator noise. So welcome to Solana. I guess is the shortest way to say it. We were able to successfully execute the migration last week. There were, really appreciate all the support from the community working through some of the sort of bugs that were there. We sort of knew that it wasn't going to be absolutely flawless, but the most important things that that did work were all account state did transition over, all hotspots did transition over, all staked positions did transition over with the land rush, and people have started also staking, which is great. One of the advantages and sort of the changes that came with the migration was that you can stake even just one HNT rather than having to have a full 10,000 to run a validator. And people have started delegating too. So all of this is awesome. We love the engagement of the community. We appreciate the patience of some of the sort of edge cases and the bugs. We're still dealing with iOS App Store review process, which we're about to send another request to re-review for the 206 release. But yeah, things generally speaking, like if I'm looking at the sort of 80th percentile, 90th percentile of people in our community, things are generally looking good. And so it's been great. We've also gotten a lot of really great feedback and engagement from the Solana community. And a few of them have already started joining our Discord. There's some new things that you can do with with our community can do with different projects in Solana, and we expect to have more. I think this morning, like 4 or 5 different projects wanted to be introduced and wanted to talk about how they can support the Helium community as well. And so so really excited to have more engagement with an even larger community base, and super just generally stoked. A few folks at the foundation are going to be in Austin for consensus this week, and engaging with community members here, and also we'll obviously be on Discord and all the regular channels as well. But yeah, I'll hand it off to Noah if he's ready to talk a little bit about the technical stuff, as much as I'm tempted to do it myself. Go for it, Noah.
Yeah. Well, we can both do it. There's enough technical stuff for both of us. So yeah, I mean, I'll start with the bad, just because I don't want to downplay people having issues. So since the migration, we've had app crashes, really a lot of kind of superficial user interface level bugs that have kept people from doing what they want to do, difficulties claiming, and there was the issue with the IoT airdrop. I promise you that we've all been in the trenches fixing these things, not just engineering, but comms and the community teams, and really a bunch of people in the ecosystem, including other companies, have been in the trenches with us fighting all of this. So really thank you guys for all of your patience. I think it's easy to lose sight of the good through the bad. So I want to focus more on the good, right? Despite a lot of little bugs and issues, the core protocol is remarkably stable. Everybody's got their funds. We have hundreds of thousands of claim transactions coming through a day. So tons of people are claiming their rewards actively. Mining is working. Hotspots are working. We're seeing tens of thousands of migration transactions a day. So more than 50% of the Helium network has been migrated. That means that it's not exactly users, but in terms of the state by hotspots and wallets, more than 50% of people have actually logged on to Solana and gotten their stuff, which is insanely cool. I mean, really, like this is a pretty big technological achievement. Helium went to sleep on its own L1 and woke up on Solana, and everything's just working. It's amazing. And it's not just a migration, right? Like we didn't just take what was existing on Helium and migrate it to Solana. We also built a bunch of new stuff, like IoT didn't exist on Helium. This whole concept of V tokens and being able to stake your V tokens or delegate your V tokens into a sub DAO and then go and claim rewards on those sub DAOs. Like that is, I don't think that's been done anywhere. And that's it. That entire calculation is happening on chain. There's no oracles involved in that, which is really, really cool from a technical perspective to be able to do that. So, we're gonna squash every damn bug. Just, bear with us here for the first few weeks after the migration. But the technical achievement here is large. I mean, we basically took the entire state of Helium, turned it into a bunch of transactions that need to be run on Solana, compressed that down into a 32-byte Merkle root, and now over the past week, people have been running transactions against that Merkle root, and just this idea that the entire state of Helium is just snapshotted and in one place on chain is really cool. And people, most people probably won't care about this, but technical people can go and they can actually look at the export of the chain and they can verify that that is exactly what we put on Solana, which is pretty cool.
It is cool. Hash codes like Noah with the technical gibberish. But
Yeah.
it
Taken
is
after
cool.
totally.
A rare time that I'm not doing it.
Cool. Thank you, Noah. Scott, we have you up here too. Is there anything else you want to say about the migration, or maybe anything people should keep in mind?
No, I think that for the most part, I think that for folks who have not been keeping track of the announcements, that's really where we're keeping the primary lines of communication as far as what issues have been open, closed, what the resolutions are, what is still outstanding, with a little bit of context around short-term and long-term fixes. So yeah, I would just say keep your eyes on that channel there. Anything else, obviously, Solana migration questions channel is still the best place. As much as we're over the big hurdles, there's still a lot of kind of fixes and patches, and a lot of that's going to be stuff that's not just back end, but certainly on the UX side, as well as on content and education. I think that there's a lot of folks who are certainly new to stuff that relates to Solana and DeFi. We want to do our best to help the community along with. Sorry about that. So yeah, let's just kind of keep the questions coming. I think that we will keep what we'd like to do, just the reception around the office hours and the AMAs seemed very warmly received. We want to keep those types of things going over the next kind of several weeks, or even into perpetuity, honestly. So we'll keep folks posted on that. I just want to make sure we're doing our best we can to continue supporting. But otherwise, I think that's kind of it for me. Anybody who is in Austin at Consensus this week, there is a DeepIn event tonight that we are, I don't know if we're technically co-hosting with IoTex, but I will be there on panel. Anybody who's around, feel free to shoot me a note. Would love to catch up in person.
Yeah, I can drop a link to that in the chat here too. It's called the Real World event by IoTex.
Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah. Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot too. You wanted to talk about kind of how people can keep learning about what they can do with Solana and sort of highlight some Solana ecosystem events. So I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, so I'll take it from here. Yeah, thanks, Valerie. First of all, welcome everybody to the Solana ecosystem. It's been a really long week, and the Helium core developers have been working crazy hard, not just to implement the migration, but also to smooth out any unanticipated speed bumps as soon as possible to improve the experience for all Helium network stakeholders. So again, we're helping the community and core developers track issues, which you can find in the form of the daily updates in the Helium Discord announcements channel, But overall, the migration has been extremely successful. So I just want to put out a huge thanks to the entire Helium community for your work in preparing the Helium network for this change, whether it's been through helping folks, with education before, during, and after the migration, writing, discussing, and voting on HIPs to guide the migration through, and clarify outstanding issues, or working on services to make Oracle data available to the community. Like a huge thanks, huge kudos to the entire Helium community. So yeah, just keep in mind that there are a lot of things that the core developers are still working on. So many little quality of life updates, especially to the Helium wallet app, to make the experience just easier for everyone overall. So keep an eye out for those. In addition, we will be providing educational materials to supplement that in order to just make the experience better for everyone on Helium. Like, we know this is a new experience for a lot of folks, but we're really excited that Helium is on Solana now. This opens up a huge ecosystem that's available to Helium and the Helium users. So you've probably already seen some of the ways that we've been able to rely on existing Solana projects and tooling to power Helium on Solana, whether that's using Clockwork to automate Helium epics, or Helium price oracles, or other tools to like compressed NFTs to power like hotspots. So we're really excited for the possibilities ahead. Solana projects are now also able to permissionlessly integrate Helium and Helium tokens into their own programs now, right? So there's nobody that needs to give them permission to do this. A lot of projects are free to take Helium and Helium tokens and all of this stuff that we've built and continue to build on that. So Helium tokens like HNT, IoT, mobile, these are all standard Solana SPL tokens now. And so we've already seen many projects start to build out with Helium assets. So for example, projects like Camino, Jupiter, Orca being some of these notable names that we've been helping to technically support. So we're really excited to see more and more ways that Helium and Solana communities are able to integrate Helium into the wider Solana ecosystem. And the Helium Foundation, is here to provide technical support to folks in general, whether you're a Helium person or a Solana person. We're still going to have those Zoom technical office hours for folks looking to build. So please take advantage of that. We love to see it. If you do build something that the Helium community can use and want to demonstrate your app or project to the Helium community, we're facilitating events and presentations. So you'll find some of these already available and already listed in the Helium Discord events calendar, which you can find on the top left of the Discord channel menu. And so our first event is actually roughly in 2 hours. In this very same channel, the Camino team will be giving us a demo on how their product works and how their liquidity vaults work, which support HNT, IoT, and mobile. On Monday, we'll have another presentation from the Jupiter team on how their product works as well and how to use that. So please take advantage of these if you're interested. It's a great way to learn about the Solana ecosystem and how you interact with the different projects and products that are available now that we're in Solana. That's all I've got for now. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Valerie.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yep, and if anyone's looking for those events, again, they'll always be in this little top events button at the in the community Discord. We'll also put those on Twitter anytime we can, and yeah, you'll see a lot of stuff coming. So always come to the Discord. In general, y'all are already here, but that's the kind of source of truth for all things going on. All right, thank you everyone for all your notes about Solana. So we're going to move into now some more updates, just like from the network. Like what else have folks been doing here? So I'm going to call up Neil to talk about the IoT working group, and then we'll have Keith R here to talk about the mobile working group. So Neil, can you tell us about what have you been doing in the last month, and also just remind people like what is the IoT working group and what are they working on? Some people might be new here.
Sure. So the IoT working group is just a bunch of people that have gotten together and been voted on to talk about POC events, basically, and how POC happens on the IoT network. So it's nothing we say is, set in stone, and everyone can always make contributions. But our goal as a group is to work together to try and improve POC for the better. So far, we've looked at how density is affecting the network, how HIP 17 works, how overcomplex HIP 17 is, where its weaknesses are, where its strengths are. and just how we're changing POC in general, basically. So we've explored ideas about replacing HIP-17 with a new system. We've explored ideas around changing variables in HIP-17 to improve it in overdense areas. And the most important thing, which is taking the most time, is gathering data around these changes and how they affect the network, right? We don't want to make really quick changes and then suddenly the tokenomics are completely different for the network. So anything we do will be backed in data and backed with tools to view it. So a lot of the work that we've been doing so far is gathering that data and working out what we think is best for the network. So far, we put one HIP in place, which I'm not sure what we call now for the IoT network. It's not a HIP, it's a, I don't know, IoT IP.
I think it's going to stay
It's still
hip.
HIP. Yeah,
It's
it should
still a
stay
HIP,
HIP.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, first to witness, basically, that's how the network and that's how data works on the network. When a sensor sends an uplink, the first one to hear it is rewarded. That's how the network was built originally, but because of chain sync issues, it meant that hotspots weren't always at the tip to report their witnessing, so they needed this big window to basically give them chance to catch up with the chain to submit that witness. But now that's all gone and that's all gone away. There's a group of people that think the best thing for the network would be to get rid of that lottery of 14 witnesses that are picked and go back to a system that is equal to the way that data transfer works. And what this will mean is that the fastest hotspots in an area, the best setup hotspots in an area, will be rewarded over say, for example, a hotspot on a 4G network, right? So if you're in the middle of density like San Francisco or London, it's probably not a good idea to put a 4G hotspot in there, right? But if you're in the middle of nowhere where there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, it just wouldn't affect you. So moving back to first to witness means that in density you're rewarding the better setup hotspots. There are some caveats to that. There are around 600 DIY gateways that will always be faster at writing the witness and reporting it. They will always be faster. And then there's a few makers that have very, very slightly different security methods. So they can be a tad faster as well. But overall, we think it's a good change. So I've submitted the HIP and obviously just waiting for the Solana stuff to go through. So it's there and hopefully we can test realms with it at some point. But that's how far we got. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil. If anyone has questions about the IoT POC working group, please put them in the chat and I'll read them out. I do have one of my own questions. If it's, I think it's hopefully clarifying question. I know that there's a roadmap on the docs page, docs.helium.com. Are you guys working with that roadmap, or how are you thinking about the roadmap in relation to kind of the other changes you're looking at making?
Yeah, so there's three points of view, I think at the moment, or two. Let me think through it. So the first one is, yeah, totally. Let's stick with what the roadmap says. Just change HIP-17 variables. HIP-17 is working. It's just that it's not scaling right in the dense areas. There's the second view is HIP-17 isn't working at all. Let's replace it with another system that rewards based on useful coverage. And then there's a third system, which is a little complex, but rather than having lots of hex sizes, you score them based on the neighboring hexes. So rather than have problems like one of the big problems is, for example, in Toronto, if you look at the Res4 size, all of the hotspots are in one corner, getting a really bad, but everyone in the Res4, which is a huge area, not useful in any way. But everyone that puts it in that might not be anywhere near those hotspots is getting a very reduced score. So it needs to happen in a better way, and that's what we're trying to work through to work out what step is best. But right now, yes, we are following the roadmap. I personally think that HIP-17 variable changes are needed, and then we move to model coverage, which would only reward for legit traffic on the network. It would do the same sort of thing that denialist is doing, but on network, and that's the next stage of that. So we're in between following it and working out what we want to do next.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, Neil. Well, awesome. If no one has any other questions about that, we'll give Keith R the floor, and Keith is going to tell us about what the mobile working group has been doing, any progress since last month. And again, Keith, give us an overview on, kind of what the mobile POC working group is here to do for anyone that might be new to that, and maybe how it's, or remind us how it's different than the IoT POC working group.
Okay, so the mobile POC working group is a group of 10 folks who are helping try to make some of the small decisions and thoughts around any of the new HIPs or processes of what to do for mobile. The first few iterations before they're sort of released to the public for discussion. And I think we're trying to help Boris make those things happen at a faster pace. So what have we been up to for the last month? We've had lots of discussions about the mobile onboarding fees that were not paid by the mobile gateways because there was no mobile sub-DAO when they were first released. We had 2 HIPs, 80 and 81, which went to vote, and neither passed the mark to go into play, so they both failed. So we had some more discussions about onboarding fees. We have some drafts of some HIPs that are going. One is carrier hex boosting. The idea behind this is that right now, when you place a mobile radio, there is little guidance around where to do that for radio operators, mobile operators. And this lack of direction is, in the growth of the mobile network, is not optimal for building. So the goal of the HIP is to provide a framework for service providers. And service providers in this case, the next one will be Helium Mobile, to influence the growth of the network by indicating where a radio is needed. And so the service provider would boost the hex via burn mechanism. That's what we're trying to sort of get drafts in quickly to try to decide the best way to do that. They burn into a hex. Now the mobile operators say to themselves, I see where a radio is needed. We'll place the radio there, earn the proof of coverage rewards. And now you have mobile operators knowing where the data will be so that they can place the radio. Then we had a suggestion by one of our dear leaders of suggesting that no hex give any proof of coverage rewards unless specifically unlocked by a service provider. There is some good logic in that, but it got softened to allow folks, operators, to build on their own to place radios where they want, but not receive proof of coverage rewards until enough data has passed through. These are all not rules. These are not law yet. These are all things that are being discussed. I just want to make that clear. We're working on Oracle hex boosting. Today, all res 12 hexes on the map are equal from a proof of coverage reward standpoint. Covering 100 hexes in the Pacific Ocean will yield a mobile hotspot the same amount of proof of coverage rewards as covering 100 hexes in downtown Manhattan. That, of course, can't be done. So the idea there is that the Oracle will boost up and down hexes that shouldn't be, boost down coverage that shouldn't be in the middle of the ocean, whereas on land. And we're looking at some of the ways that might be decided by having, we know where people are. We had some more discussions about onboarding fees, price, who pays, gateways versus radios. Unfortunately, there are lots of opinions and lots of thoughts and lots of technical reasons for and against, and so that hasn't come to fruition yet. We have a HIP that was drafted for prioritizing indoor radios. The current reward model using obstruction data is counting coverage for outdoor radios first. This creates a scenario where if an indoor radio is present, only the hex that the indoor radio is located is rewarded and the surrounding ring around it does not get counted. So this is mostly seems to be a sort of programming issue. So the idea there is to indoor radios get counted first, since they're limited only in their 1K ring. The hexes around that one hex, that they would get priority in the scoring mechanism. That hasn't gone to discussion yet. We were presented Armand's draft committed coverage doc. I'm not going to be able to give it justice. Had to do another task at the time, but it was about operators staking to the hexes that they want to cover or covering, to say, I'm going to be here working these hexes for some amount of time. I'm committed to it. And in effect, I'm going to create a proxy service level agreement that I will cover this hex. Hopefully I'm doing okay, Armand.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Essentially, it's called committed coverage, and the high level idea is for hosts on the IoT or mobile network, but in this specific case, mobile, to economically align themselves by staking or burning some amount of their sub-DAO's token to a hex and a specific hotspot potentially as well, and make a multi-year commitment to get increased earnings. And the idea is that they should, if they fulfill their commitment, they should get outsized rewards for doing that, because it's very valuable to have coverage that not only exists in a location, but that users of the network are highly convinced will continue to exist, right? This allows people to build on the network with confidence. But it also should penalize hosts who break that commitment and do not continue hosting for as long as their self-declared commitment. So that's the high-level idea. It needs refining, but that's where the direction it's going.
And Armand's presentation is, like, again, the perfect essence of what we're doing in these working groups, is that, you know, he's presenting ideas that gets everybody thinking about it, people who are very focused on covering mobile, the working group, and allows folks to generate further ideas and refinements for him. So sorry I didn't commit as much attention and resources as I could have, but okay. So then moving on, we've had more discussions on deciding onboarding fees for mobile, trying to make a minimum payment or minimal cost for them. Again, we never get anywhere because there's such a heated discussion. One of our dear leaders also threw out a hot take the other day of just eliminating the onboarding fees. As I understand it, Hans, it's just one of our users working group or involved community members has presented a new HIP regarding that idea. I didn't have a chance to read through it or give a summary. And you would ask Valerie for one more thing about a quick summary about HIP 79, which hasn't gone to vote yet, but is in discussion, with some mobile PC for mapper rewards. This HIP is proposing to adjust the rewards between service providers and mappers to get mappers to confirm radios, as well as to allow the phones that will be of subscribers to discovery map where things are, and allow that to have hexes be boosted, because we now know where people are if the subscriber has opted in to releasing their data or sharing their location stuff.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, no, thank
That's
you,
it.
Keith. I was hoping we could talk about HIPS 79 too. So thank you for that. Maybe we can pivot into this a bit more right now too. I brought Boris up here when I saw he joined the call. Yeah, so if we can talk about HIP 79, that would be wonderful. I think we haven't done this in the community call yet. So yeah, I think that summary was pretty good. Basically, you could get rewarded for mapping network coverage on the mobile network. Yeah, can you give us any more details, Boris or Keith, about what devices would get rewarded, or yeah, what it looks like to verify that coverage as a user? If this specifies that, of course. Yeah, tell us as much as you can.
Yeah, I can try, and I apologize. I probably only have maybe 10-15 minutes. I'm on the airport, so sorry for any background noise. I think that HIP 79 is Valerie correctly zeroed in on, because that's the one that's probably closest to actually being put up to vote and the most complete out of everything that Keith summarized. So the gist behind the HIP 79 is to lay out the sort of foundational first step towards rewarding mappers that are either spot mapper devices or just regular phones. The HIP proposes that we adjust the pool of rewards for mappers up at the expense of service providers. For HIP 53, service provider pool was, I think, 20%, and mapper was 10. So this HIP proposes to reverse it, so decrease the service provider rewards to 10% and up the mapper rewards to 20%. And then it describes a framework for basically doing two types of mapping. One type of mapping is using the dedicated mapper device, typically Spot at this point. And this type of mapping is called verification mapping. This type of mapping is all about effectively verifying that the radios that have been CPI'd and are actively broadcasting on the network are actually broadcasting what they claim to be broadcasting. So this is verification mapping. And the second type of mapping is discovery mapping. Discovery mapping can be done with any phone by any subscriber to any service provider on the network. And the point of the discovery mapping is basically for people to voluntarily opt in and continuously share the location of their device, for which they'll be rewarded in mobile tokens. And the point behind it is that this location can then be used for service providers to figure out where the coverage is most needed. Because given the location and given the information about how much data is being used on the network, so for example, if you subscribe to Helium mobile service, and predominantly we're relying on T-Mobile as our macro carrier, we'll be able to see how much data a particular set of subscribers is using at what location from T-Mobile, therefore sort of uncovering the opportunity for the coverage to be created very precisely with virtually guaranteed data in certain locations. And then this information will subsequently be used to boost hexes, as Keith has described, by burning mobile into those hexes. So that's kind of a quick and dirty summary of HIP 79. One other important aspect to mention about HIP 79 is that what we have decided purposefully to not tackle in it is how to potentially reward or slash the earnings for spots that the verification mappers have uncovered to be misrepresenting their coverage. So we've kind of played around with different options. I think inside the HIP there is a link to look at just some of the current thinking, but what we've decided is that we want to get basically kind of mappers launched out there, gather the data, and using the data fine-tune what the algorithm is going to look like for either increasing or slashing the rewards for the basically hotspot operators that whose modeled coverage potentially does not align with the verified coverage. So that's HIP 79. So I think, like I said, it's the one that's closest to being voted on. It's published. It's open for community discussion. We'd like to encourage everybody to, look through it, make comments, ask questions, and hopefully we should be able to, put it up for voting following the community discourse, in the next week or two. The hip to look after that for is, I think, the hex boosting, which is almost ready to be published. I'm hoping we can maybe get it published this week. But it's a little bit, a little bit behind the hip 79.
Yeah, I will. That is another note for me to get that up so y'all can view that. Just so much going on with the Solana migration that we will get the hips back up. We do have a question. I'm asking Ryoba to rephrase it because I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but I'll read it out, Boris, and let me know if this makes sense to you. Data use on a specific hex should be available without such collaboration of the users, correct? Or not? If that question makes sense. I'm asking for some clarification.
Yeah, I think that clarification is warranted. I can try to kind of interpret the question to the best of my ability. So the information about how much TMO data the subscriber is using is not available through the device period. So you can't get it from the phone. Phones are built such that they don't allow any third-party apps, even with the user opt-in permission, to access and share any information about the data usage. It is possible to get the data usage information on the back end by the service provider. So we, as a, as a Helium mobile service provider, you subscribe to our service, we know on the back end how much data you have used. But what we don't know is we don't know the location. So because again, the phones don't, share location unless the user has explicitly opted in to share the location. Particularly true if the location needs to be shared on a continuous basis. So if you're an iPhone user, we have to really, jump some hoops to, for the user to basically turn on the continuous location sharing for any app. And then the iPhone would remind the user every 2 days, hey, this app's been using your location, 23 times in the background in the last 2 days. Do you want us to shut it off? No, you have to keep clicking no, no, no. But, our expectation is that if we reward the users for sharing the location, we have the data on the back end about what their data usage is. We can connect it to the location, and with those two things, we can have very precise map of where the best opportunities are for the radios to be placed, and we can then inform the network to by burning mobile into the certain hexes to place radios in particular hexes, thereby driving a lot of data into the network.
Thank you, Boris. And we need consent for that data, correct? Like today to get that data, do users consent to that, and the service provider can see that in the back end? But to do that on a sort of publicly owned and operated network, do we need a different kind of consent for that? Does that question make sense?
So the the thinking is we will need the consent of a user to, obviously it's going to be voluntarily, consensually, the user would share the location data with them. On the implementation side, the way we're thinking about this is that this data won't actually be publicly posted and attached to a particular username. We will use sort of a stream of data in aggregate to then, mark up as a service provider the hexes where the data coverage is going to be happening. But we're not going to be exposing, the information that's going to get exposed to the chain is whether a user is actually, are they sharing their location or are they not sharing the location? The actual location is not going to be publicly visible to everybody, so that, if Boris is discovery mapping, you can see that, at 3 p.m. I went to, whatever, the Starbucks coffee shop, and at 5 p.m. I went to get my dinner. So that information is not going to be publicly visible at any point in time, is how we're thinking of building this.
Okay. One other question I have. I think that answered your question, Ryoba, but let us know if it did not. One other question is, could any of this mapping data be helpful for deployments as well? So I guess first, will all of the data be public? Like we won't have data about users, but we'll have data about coverage and location. Yeah, one, will that be public? And then two, could that help deployers in some way?
So this is absolutely the point, is to help deployers. And the way that is going to help deployers is that service providers will have the ability, armed with that data, to burn mobile tokens into certain hexes. By burning the mobile tokens into the hexes, boost the reward yield in certain hexes. So if you go to Coverage Explorer right now, all you see is just like, here are the hexes that have been covered, and here are the hexes that are not covered. There's no additional information. Following the implementation of these HIPs, you go to the Coverage Explorer, and you can vividly see that in particular area in whatever downtown LA, these hexes are bright red or whatever, and they give you 10x yield versus any other hex. And the reason why you will see that is because a service provider like Helium Mobile has gone and burned mobile into those hexes. And the reason why we did that is because we know that we have a lot of data usage happening in that particular area. So the Coverage Explorer this way will become a tool for figuring out fairly precisely where the radios are needed most, and also getting outsized incentives for putting radios in those places.
Yeah, great. Is there and this is only mapping Helium coverage, correct? It's not like we're going to see, we're not mapping T-Mobile coverage. Like we won't know that there's T-Mobile coverage, somewhere when there's not a Helium hotspot. We'll just know if the Helium hotspot is there or not.
Yeah, so the current set of HIPs, they focus just on the Helium coverage. So the verification mapping is specifically for the Helium hotspots initially. Although we will scan and we'll have the spots, we'll scan and have the data. We haven't, the HIPs don't tackle how we're going to actually display this data. Although we'll the devices that are being built for mapping have a capability to collect the coverage from, T-Mo and AT&T, etc. But the first thing that we're tackling right now is how do we enable subscribers to share their location for discovery mapping, and how do we enable Spot to basically scan and share data about the Helium coverage. It's related to strength of T-Mo coverage and AT&T coverage and stuff like that, and how we expose that. There's a lot of good early thoughts about it. Some of them go as far as creating a separate mapper sub-DAO, which I think is not, an entirely bad idea. I think it's worth exploring, definitely. But none of these concepts have yet been materialized into HIPs.
Got it. Yeah, there's actually we just got a question about another concept I think y'all have been talking about in the mobile working group. But thank you for talking about HIP 79. I'm glad that we got to address that today. Anyone that wants to go talk about HIP 79, please do. There's an open HIP channel. We still need to do sort of some test HIPs or some tests voting on realms before we get a actual HIP up to vote on realms. So look out for some of that. But I think we're pretty close to moving HIPs forward into voting, and we'll have some great new tools on Solana to do that with. One other question, Boris, while we have you, there was also talk in mobile discussion about letting the first ones in a hex own that from the beginning to keep hexes more limited. Is that something too, kind of in your topic of concepts that mobile working group's been discussing?
Yeah, so this is the thing that Arman was talking about. This is called committed coverage. This is, it's our homework as a mobile working group is to, now that we've heard and had a kind of discussion about what the committed coverage can look like, to produce the initial kind of like bullet point draft and potentially chat about it at the next meeting, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. But yeah, that's in the works.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Boris. Thanks for your time. We're going to move on from HIP 79 and mobile and IoT working groups. Again, thanks everyone for talking about that. We have Sophie up here from the MCC, the Manufacturer Compliance Committee. Oh, or we just lost Sophie. We're trying to get Sophie. Oh, here's Sophie back. Sophie, I have you here to give us an update about Manufacturers Compliance Committee. We are almost at the top of the hour. We have about 40 minutes left on this call. So take it away, Sophie, and then we do have a few more topics to cover.
All right. Well, I'm going to be really quick. Thank you, Valerie. Hi, everyone. I'm pretty excited to be here in the first community call post-migration and echo the thank yous from everyone that came who was speaking before. Just, a big thanks to the whole community, to everyone who's a maker and hotspot owners. It's taken a pretty immense effort, and we really, pretty awed by the amount of interest and enthusiasm. So I just have a little bit of housekeeping for the MCC, the Manufacturer Compliance Committee's update. And if you're a maker, this is about getting communication to you. We've organized our communication. It's going out in 3 places. There is a public manufacturer general channel on the Helium server. This is a fairly new channel. It's been around for a couple of months. Makers can write in it and ask for support from engineers, and hotspot owners, you're able to read and see
Sophie, I think you just cut out.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, we
I
can hear
can
you.
hear you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, keep going. So.
Okay. And there's announcements on the Foundation Committee announcements channel, and we have a big email list. And I cannot stress enough, if you are a maker and you're not getting email or communications from us, we are sending it. Let us know so we can fix it. Okay, so I just have a few other updates. Most makers are on track with post-migration maker apps. I read on Gristle King, another MCC member, Nick, his Twitter feed this morning. Hotspot owners and community members, patience is your superpower. We're, not very far into this migration, and we're working pretty hard to solve issues as they come up. So, patience. Light hotspots. We have decided at the Foundation to now call them simply hotspots. And this is because previously there was something called a full hotspot. I'm sure you all remember. It did a lot of computation on its hardware. Now that these full hotspots are in the distant past, there are just hotspots and data-only hotspots. And we are in the process of updating our docs to this new naming convention. And yes, there are mobile hotspots too. These are radios with a hotspot attached, but there will be no more light hotspot. Okay, round of applause for 23 fresh new hotspot models that have recently been approved by the MCC. You'll see those on the market in the coming months. Dual mining earlier this month. I believe I mentioned this on the last community call, so I'll just be brief. Earlier this month, the MCC issued a statement on dual mining. The brief summary is that any application that shares the LoRaWAN concentrator and therefore degrades the Helium network by splitting the signals is not permitted. And there's an official statement, which I'll post the link in the chat when I'm done. Last update. There are a few makers that the MCC has had some trouble getting a response from. And I wanted to call it out because maybe some of you are also having the same trouble. And we're going to continue trying. But these makers are MileSite, Mbit, and TMG. And while Mbit and TMG have not onboarded any hotspots, so it shouldn't be too much problem, their websites have gone down as well. MileSite has a lot of hotspots, and we are hearing a lot of reports of not being able to get hold of them, as well as things not working. So just wanted to let you all know that we are on top of that. Okay, I'm going to leave a link in the chat for all approved makers and the link again to the MCC statement on dual mining. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. I'm done.
Thank you, Sophie. That was great.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Clarissa, you are up here and hopefully your mic is working. And we're going to have Clarissa from the Helium Foundation give us an update about grants and some new grant round info.
Yes, thanks so much, Valerie. Hey, everybody. As many of you know, when we reopened the 2023 grant program, we invited anyone across the community to submit an idea for tools, documentation, or infrastructure projects that make putting sensors on the network faster, easier, and more seamless. I mentioned on the last community call that we were blown away by dozens of very strong submissions, and we're moving forward with a handful of the most developed projects. So I wanted to share a snapshot of the great projects that have officially won grant funding to improve the user experience of onboarding sensors. First, I wanted to highlight a project from Paul, aka Disk91, who proposed an ambitious project to build a new Helium console. This grant project is an open source solution to link router service to Chirp Stack LNS. Paul's approach will enable users to simply import and manage a device fleet and further enable the Helium connectivity provider ecosystem, a very exciting one that I think quite a few of you have been watching or interested in. All right, so many of you are familiar with the work of Brian at Parlay Labs. Brian won a grant to create an open source key management solution so that keys can safely and securely move from owner to owner and reduce the amount of keys transferred through email or Excel sheets. We're very excited to see the MVP Brian will create for this grant. The next grant is one that lit up the foundation team when we read the application. Scott Livingston won a grant to create interactive docs about onboarding devices. Many of us know from experience that in static documentation, the reader might become stuck while preparing a development environment, or the author might forget to include a crucial detail. Scott proposed a TypeScript package for embedding complete interactive examples with real devices that can be run from within the docs. This approach to crafting rich documentation could significantly level up the sensor onboarding process and make it easier to build IoT solutions on Helium. A very exciting one that lots of folks across the foundation team were itching to fund. The last project I'm going to highlight from the device onboarding call is from Nick, aka Gristle King, mentioned again on this call. Nick submitted a very exciting and thoughtful idea that highlighted his depth of experience as an IoT creator in the Helium community. For this grant, Nick is building a LoRa to LoRaWAN repeater. In a nutshell, this is an integrated board design that enables the reading of data from devices using LoRa and rebroadcasts it onto Helium's LoRaWAN protocol. This opens up the doors for countless new devices and makes onboarding to Helium even easier. There will be a few more projects that come in from the device onboarding call that are currently being finalized. We'll be sharing all the projects that won a grant for the device onboarding call as soon as possible. And we definitely want to have more calls like this in the future. The next call for proposals will be announced very soon, but I wanted to give you all a hint in the form of a question. So here's the question, or the hint. What tools, infrastructure, or documentation would help IoT creators select the best sensor for their target use case? That's the only hint you're getting right now, so stay tuned for the official prompt, which we'll be sharing in the next week or two. Okay, before I hand it back to Valerie, I wanted to share a quick update about the Community Events Grant. As many of you know, we want to see more meetups that get people excited about Helium and building on Helium. And we're inviting community members all across the globe to lead gatherings that do this. As part of this funding opportunity, you can win $500 in funding to host a Helium event in your community. And I'm thrilled to say that we've greenlit grants for community events in many, many locations, including Chicago, Minneapolis, India, Kenya, France, Denver, Colombia, Bulgaria, Singapore, Mexico City, Mexico. Just many, many great places across the US that we're and the world that we're seeing come in. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we'll be celebrating these events as they happen. And I highly encourage everyone here, everyone interested in Helium, everyone who has a friend who's interested in learning more about Helium and you want to put an event on together, apply for the community event grant. It takes 10 to 20 minutes to apply, and this funding could be the little nudge, the little push that you're looking for to actually make something happen. So take a look at the 2023 grant program and apply today. It's helium.foundation/grants. And I can't wait to see what you're cooking up, and I'll hand it back to Valerie.
Thank you, Clarissa. That was so great. Did you say the date? Did I miss it about when the next grants round is coming out?
I did not say when the next call for proposals is. I just gave that hint and left it vague. But we hope to, yeah, the reason that that's not set in stone is we're maybe bringing on a partner to help promote the event and also help us assess the applications that we get in. So we're holding out a little bit longer to see if we have a collaboration for that. Yeah, but I'll share as soon as possible.
And I know someone just put the grants page in the chat, but you can always go and find out the best information from helium.foundation/grants. And of course, you'll see it in the Discord as well. So thank you, Clarissa.
Thanks, everybody.
So we are towards the end of our agenda today. We did have a really great article that was written by Fraser and his team about BEHNT and governance changes. I don't see them here. They said they may be able to join, they may not. So I don't see them here. So we won't have them up today to talk. But we do have now just some general time, and I think we still have Noah, Bai, and Scott here to answer some questions about the migration or anything else you have on your mind about Solana or whatnot. We did have 2 questions come in that I would love to read off. But Abai, Noah, Scott, let me know if you're still here and if that's you're able to take some questions.
Yep,
Awesome.
I'm still here.
Awesome. Okay, let me go back to the questions. I've marked them with a Solana thing. Okay. Question from Viper. When will DAO governance awards be introduced for locking up IoT and mobile?
Those should already be live. If you DAO governance for IoT and mobile. Yeah, that would be a HIP. So it's not currently defined what rewards you get for locking up IoT and mobile.
Okay.
I mean, you get vMobile and vIoT, which you can use for voting, and then IoT subDAO and the mobile subDAO, which means that the subDAOs can kind of start having their own HIPs and their own votes on things, and those votes can include ideas around what other things you get for having V tokens, I would imagine.
Got it. So going through the questions. Okay, when will we see the amount of claimable rewards accumulated on rounds?
So first, we're trying to fix the transaction simulation in the wallet. So once that's fixed, when you click the claim button, you'll at least see what you're going to get. And then after that, it's it's on the to-do list of features to add, but it's behind all of the bug fixing. So once things stable out and we stop having bugs to fix, then we can get to adding features like that.
One thing to add to that is, so we actually forked Realms, which is a standard UX for SPL governance on Solana. And we added a bunch of features, the sort of idea around being able to delegate and being able to claim rewards and all of that is actually pretty new. And so that's a feature that we would add at a when we can get out of the sort of bug fixing.
Great. Other questions. When do you suspect problems with transferring funds will be solved?
I would follow up with the announcements channel for that. There's a good tracking of that and has been. I think now we're on update 11, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I actually think we did solve that problem with 2.0.6 of the release. If you're still having that problem, you may not have the app fully updated.
Right.
Or
right, but iOS still hasn't gotten that release. So that's the downside.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. So we're still waiting on Apple to approve that update on the iOS side, and Android is up to date and should not have that problem. But as folks are, I do want to use this call to focus on governance and things like that, particularly as far as like support. Please go to the Helium wallet channel for any issues that you're having with the wallet, or the Solana migration channel for anything sort of in general related to Solana migration.
So I saw another question here from Siegfried. I'm just going to keep things moving. Is it true that NFT burns, imprints that need to be signed, can enable malicious transactions? Effectively, is it better to hide spam NFTs, e.g. in Phantom, instead of burning them? I'll speak as the less technical person. When in doubt, if you see something that comes into your wallet that you're not sure what it is, our advice is just simply don't touch it. If it's not another program that you're interacting with on Solana, the only thing you're going to see in there that's Helium related right now are hotspot NFTs. So if something else is popping in, best course of action is honestly just ignore it. I do think there's a UX change coming. Buyer, know if you can kind of speak to hiding on that.
Yeah, so we already hide other tokens. So there's the same way that you might get a spam NFT, you might get a spam token as well. So and that's just the nature of this large ecosystem that we're part of. It is possible to essentially send spam as well. It's something that we didn't really have on our own chain because we didn't have a smart contract framework and we didn't have an enormous ecosystem like this. So I think just for this is actually important for our user base since we have lots of people listening and folks listening in the recordings as well. If there's a token that you see that's and NFTs are tokens as well that you don't recognize unless they are a hotspot, a VSR position, or for the few folks out there who have HST, like if it's one of those, don't interact with them for now. Our goal is to actually hide every NFT that's not a Helium specific NFT in the Helium wallet app. Now, of course, if you use your Helium wallet, the same, private key for other Solana interactions, you can use Phantom, you can use Soulflare, you can use Glow. There's some great wallets out there, but you're probably a power user anyway, so you know what to do in that case, right? And there's definitely lots of education around those kinds of interactions as well. So you can seek it out, but obviously for our Helium ecosystem for now, I think it is safest, and we're going to update the UX to sort of match this, assuming that we can get through App Store reviews, to limit it to just Helium usage.
Yeah. So technically, to answer the question, no, burning an NFT cannot break your wallet, but I wouldn't get into the habit of burning NFTs because I've seen people burn NFTs that they thought were important, but they actually were. So an example would be like you go and add liquidity to a pool on Orca. When you do that, it actually gives you an NFT representing your position so that you can exchange that to get your tokens back. If you just thought that was a spam NFT, you would burn it and lose your tokens. Equally, like if you tried to burn the, Helium staked HNT positions, I wouldn't get into the habit of burning NFTs just because you could accidentally burn something that you want. Now, if you've interacted with any of these shady sites on any of these NFTs, I would actually recommend taking everything off of that wallet and transferring it to a new wallet. The reason being that on Solana, if you compromise someone's wallet, you can basically leave a landmine attached to one of the token accounts so that you have permission to transfer from that token account at a later date. It's really dangerous. We're going to be adding a feature into Wallet that detects token accounts that have had this added to them. But in the meantime, since we don't have that feature yet, you should, if you've interacted with any of these NFT sites, you should transfer all of your stuff to a different wallet. And then just
That's actually
generally
really interesting. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I thought that wasn't possible on Solana. I definitely told some people that, if you're not actively signing a transaction, you're good. So that's really interesting.
So it's a feature called delegation. Here's the legitimate use of the feature. The legitimate use of the feature is I'm selling my NFT. So I don't want the NFT to leave my wallet. I would like the NFT to stay in my wallet. So what I do is I delegate one token to, let's say, Magic Eden or Tensor, right? And then when my NFT sells, they have a delegation of one on that account. And so they can actually remove the NFT from my wallet and send me the SOL for that NFT. So it allows you to, kind of escrowlessly, sell NFTs and other tokens. So it's like a legitimate feature. But what a hacker will do is they will take your USDC account, they will delegate 1 million tokens to themselves, and then they'll wait until you transfer 50,000 USDC into that wallet and then yank it. And this actually happened. So somebody actually launched on Solana, somebody launched a rug NFT. A bunch of people went to the site. They minted the NFT. They got the NFT. The founders rugged or whatever, and they thought their wallet was fine. And then they used the wallet. And months later, literally 3 months after that mint, the hacker yanked everybody's funds. So this is all to say, be very careful. When you approve transactions, be very careful. And generally speaking, we can probably share documentation or advice on this, but you should always have a hot wallet, and your very important things should be on a cold wallet that you don't interact with a bunch of websites with. Anything where you're going and interacting in the browser and the Helium wallet app, you should do that with a separate wallet that doesn't have all of your assets on it.
And be careful where you lock your VEHNT. Try to, if you haven't locked it yet, try to keep that in a completely separate wallet where you don't interact with anything else for this exact reason, right? More smart contract risk. You cannot move your VEHNT once you stake it. It is stuck to that wallet forever. So you better make sure you put it in a wallet that is going to be around for a long time and you're going to be able to keep secure. And if your VEHNT is currently not in a wallet like that, move everything else out and make that just your VEHNT wallet.
Actually, Noah, to Armand's point right here too, we got a question: will locking and delegating be possible for cold wallets somehow?
Yeah, so it's actually currently supported. If you have like a ledger, you can use the Solana app on that ledger to connect your ledger to Soulflare, Phantom, Backpack, or any other Solana wallet that you prefer, and then you can visit Realms on desktop. So if you just go to the I think it's realms.heliumvote.com/HNT or /DAO/HNT, you can actually connect your Phantom wallet that's connected to your ledger and stake there with that ledger, which is what I would recommend doing.
Great. Okay, thank you, Noah. We still have some Solana kind of questions coming in, but we have the Solana migration questions channel open to answer all of these things. And again, you can continue to get updates about some of the issues you're still having through the announcements. Again, we're on, I think, update 11, so you'll see 12 later today. So go there for most up-to-date information. I don't think we really have anything else, and we don't need to keep you on just because. So anything else that any speaker wants to kind of wrap up here, or otherwise we will let you guys have the rest of your day.
Yeah, so I know there's a bunch of questions that are still coming through. Please throw them into general chat and into Solana migration questions chat. If it's a wallet specific thing, please drop it into the Helium wallet chat. And I think as we get through the phase that we're in of the migration and we sort of start bug bashing or finish bug bashing, at least for the migration issues, I think we'll start reorganizing some of our Discord channels as well to have a little more focused conversation, realms conversations and wallet conversations, for example, API conversations, Explorer conversations, all those kinds of things will kind of break out into separate channels again. So we right now everything happens to be in general, and that's why general is pretty loud and fun. So we'll sort of start to organize around this, and I know the community managers have some ideas around this. There's some plans on changing the organization of Discord last week, but I recommended that we hold for a few weeks, at least until we're through the migration. But thank you all. It's been obviously for a lot of the core devs, they've been working effectively 24/7 for about a week and a half now, and they're still at it, which is great. And a lot of the folks in the community, I know that the Helium Geek team, the Hotspotty team, Helium Deploy with tons of content. I'm just trying to think about and I'm sure I'm missing a million people. Gristle King with a bunch of content, BFG Neo with a bunch of content, and there's really an incredible community around. And so really thank you for all the work that you are all doing, because I think that is why this community is so great. There's a lot of new folks in our community that have come from the Solana side. Welcome, and to our community, make them feel welcome, and introduce them to the cool thing that we're building. Ultimately, our goal here is to build the largest decentralized wireless network. We want ubiquitous and affordable coverage for all things and people, and we are on track to keep working on that. This is a small, this will be a small event in the history of Helium, an important one, but just one of many. So really kind of looking forward to getting back on the mission.
Awesome, yeah. And thank you, Abai. Yeah. Again, go read HIP 79. It's open in the channel. It has a discussion channel here in Discord. If you have any questions, let's make sure we get those answered. But HIP 79 will likely go up to a vote fairly soon. Keep up to date with the working groups, IoT POC and mobile POC working groups. Those working groups too are just they will take lots of comments too, and there's still plenty of opportunities for everyone in the ecosystem to kind of write HIPs that influence both POC and really all aspects of the Helium network. So please write HIPs, please stay involved. If you're learning about our governance for the first time or just want to learn more, we have Governance General where you can ask questions, and there's also a forum for kind of more dedicated content. We always have the GitHub that you can go and see what's going on and track HIPs and kind of their status and everything. That is github.com/helium/HIP. And of course, you'll see all the other Helium repositories there too. But yeah, there's also just a reminder too, the Camino Vaults for Helium demo starts in 40 minutes here in the event voice stage. So take a break, come back and join that. For anyone in Austin for Consensus, there's a few Helium events going on today, and we will put a kind of summary of that in announcements so you can see everything going on and join any of the Helium community in person. So thanks for everything this month. Stay involved, keep up to date, and we'll see you next time.